have a family, I have to take care of,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, that may be true. You might have to stick it out in that job for another year or two or three. But there's nobody that says that during the time that you are in that horrible job, you can't, first of all, close yourself off from reacting to the coworkers or the bosses. You
Exactly.
may still have to deal with them in other ways, healthy ways, but you don't have to react to them in that way that I had a conversation precisely about this topic with someone the other day. You probably go home, and apart from the 8 hours you've already suffered, or 9 including lunch, you then go home and spend another 3 at home saying how awful it was. Well,
That's really like a heavy-duty sentence.
that's 12 hours a day that you've
Yes.
concentrated
It's
on
like
the
a prison
awfulness of your
sentence.
work, rather than there's probably something in your work that you can be perfecting more and more and more, not only for your pride, your own pride of how what you produce every day, but also in order to move toward your new goal. Maybe it's only, let's say you're serving in a little cafeteria, and what you really want to be doing is be a website designer, but you can't do that just yet.
Right.
So what can you do in a job like that to perfect your future?
Work on your communication skills.
Speak English with
Speak
the
English.
foreigners.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow.
You see, I mean, it's one thing you can do,
Yeah,
and then you
yeah.
can go home at night, and instead of talking about the stupid job,
Yeah.
you can be looking at a grammar book or listening to a CD on your ride home in the bus, because maybe you don't even have a car.
Yeah.
But you can be listening to a CD on the way home that will teach you English skills, which, if you're clever, you can even download for free in one of these
Definitely.
places.
Definitely. No, there are plenty of free language courses on. I can't believe the stuff that's online right now. I have a friend who's learning French.
Yes.
Totally free of charge with fantastic materials.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yes.
So you're right. So in any situation, you can find something in yourself to work on, and you can progress, even though it might not be the ideal and exactly where you want to be.
Yes, and those of you who might be listening to this who perhaps are already on the far side of 50, 60, as you look back over your life, look at what happened in place A or in situation A that led you when place B or situation B came into your life to have grown because of the A part.
Exactly.
And
It's
so on
amazing.
it goes from one to the next.
Okay. Dr. Gabriela Korch here with us on a Wednesday, and we're going to continue talking about the way that we react.
Now, there's another aspect about reacting that I think is so important, and I actually wrote about this on the blog the other day, and I quoted not a particularly well-known English poet of another century, Thomas Percy, and the quote is, "Our joys as winged dreams do fly. Why then should sorrow last? Since grief but aggravates thy loss, grieve not for what is past." Now, what is being said is that we choose to react in the face of pain, but maybe old pain. Okay, so
right.
what was done to me when I was a little girl, and here I am, a grown woman with adult children, I'm still choosing to allow this to hurt me and cause me to cry, and I relive it over and over again. Well, you might say, okay, well, if you do that, maybe you have to go to a therapist. And I say to that, well, yes, you might, but it's also really a question of a choice that you're making.
Okay.
And the choice is to relive. And if you choose to relive, you are literally damaging yourself over and over and over again in the same way that you were damaged when whatever it was that happened when you were a little girl.
Right, right.
So this choice comes into play where, again, you might say, oh, but how can I possibly forget because it was so terrible, and just imagine what was done to me and this and that. And I say to that, yes, I understand. It was indeed very terrible. Acknowledge how terrible it was, and then let it go.
Yeah.
But how do I let it go? By deciding and choosing to let it go, and therefore by putting into practice something new, which is this, the minute you notice, because you have a habit now of going back to that place with your thoughts, you have something else in mind that you can use as a get away from, from me, these thoughts. You push them out of your head with this other thing. And this other thing can be one of our favorite scenarios of something that perhaps you would like to achieve in your life in another area, in another direction, or maybe you want to have a wonderful relationship with a person in your life, your grandchildren, or your sister with whom you haven't talked for 5 years, or something. The point is, or maybe you want to find a new job, or maybe you want to write a book, or maybe you want to have an art exhibition. Whatever this scenario is, use it to push that painful thing that you keep going back to over and over again out of your mind, because the minute you catch yourself going to the bad thing, to the painful thing, you choose to pivot. And we've talked about pivoting, to swivel, to shift 180 degrees into this new direction. And it's a choice you're making to improve your life. In the end, how easy is that?
And how hard?
Well, only if you decide it's going to be hard.
Really? Okay.
Because remember, once you have decided, okay, I acknowledge that it was painful, and now I'm going to actually try and do what this woman is saying. All right. So far so good. But 5 minutes down the road, you're driving in your car, and back come your old thoughts
it's that habit
of the painful thing. And that is where I'm talking about the pivoting.
Okay.
So you've got to have this scenario or two or three ready,
right?
Because you've kind of imagined them. So let's say one of your scenarios is developing a wonderful relationship with your sister, and so you just imagine how wonderful it will be to have that really good relationship back that you used to have with her.
Right.
That already gives you a wonderfully good feeling. You don't yet know how you're going to go about and doing it, but you're just imagining how wonderful it would be. Another scenario could be that one about your art exhibition. So you imagine how fantastic it will be to have 30 paintings ready to be able to hang in some wonderful art gallery, and all these people that are going to come and look at them.
Exactly.
And then another scenario might be where you imagine maybe you want to lose some weight.
Right.
Okay, so you imagine your new body that weighs 20 pounds less or whatever. And these three scenarios can be used as tools to push your mind away from those painful thoughts. And I guarantee you, once you have done this long enough, and long enough can be as quickly as 3 weeks,
isn't that something?
it will be a new habit, and you will shy away from. In other words, you will avoid deliberately those painful thoughts because you just won't want them anymore.
Okay, so it's establishing new habits by pivoting. And I like that idea because you can almost imagine in your mind that I'm just going to turn around now. And I'm just going to turn my whole focus around and look a different direction.
Yes.
And you're going to see different things.
Yes, the concept of pivoting, it comes from the Abraham books.
Okay.
And they talk about that. And, you can imagine the pivoting like a child that is standing on its heel. And you know how they like to swivel around.
Yes.
And, of course, you can easily go from looking in one direction and changing 180 degrees to looking in the new direction. And this is the concept of pivoting, because what you've done is you've gone away from the painful thoughts of what happened to you as a kid to this wonderful scenario thought, whichever one you choose to use.
Right.
Okay, and that takes us to the next little element of how do you choose to react? Are you really claiming responsibility for yourself? Because you see, if you are not, it means you have not yet decided to do that. So your reactions are not responsible for the self-reactions.
Yes.
If I'm responsible for myself, it means I choose to be responsible for my happiness, for my well-being, no matter what the externals.
Right.
If I'm responsible, nobody out there, nothing out there, has the power to do something to me. Well, to do, yes, they can grab me and put me into jail.
Exactly.
But to do something to my mind,
yes,
because I have claimed my own responsibility for my mind.
Yes.
We go back to the diagnosis, the ill health diagnosis. We go back to any calamity that can happen in a human life. if we claim responsibility for the self, we have chosen to react in a responsible fashion in view of whatever it is that's going on outside.
Right, right.
So once